Right, so we're back again. We're on task 11 now. Linked tables again. So we have the same two tables as in this diagram here. Students have many results, and the student ID being the primary key in the student table and the foreign key in the result table. And you'll see it over here. There's student ID there in the result table, and there's student ID here in the student table. And we want to display certain things about both the tables. So, question 1, write a select SQL statement, display the last name and the first name and the marks of all students achieved a mark less than 60. So, first things first, select. What are we displaying? Last name. We want to display the last name, comma, first name. Right, which table do these come from? The last name and first name come from the student table. Student dot and student dot first name. What's the other thing we have to display? These marks, where the marks come from. If you look at the result table, student mark is in the result table, so we have to use that result dot student mark. Right, so we can see we've got two tables, student and result. So in our from section we have to say from student, comma, result. Okay, and in the where section we know already now that we have to quote the join between the two tables, which, and the join is the student ID. Student ID. Look over in our query, oopsie daisy. If we look over here, we'll see student ID in one and student ID in the other. We have to quote that join in the where part, where student dot student ID equals the other table dot student ID. Okay, so that is obligatory. Are there any conditions? Well, students who achieved a mark less than 60, so we have an and here, where and result dot student mark is less than 60, semicolon. We run it, and there we are. We're displaying the marks and the student name. Right, that one's done. Just going to comment it out so that we don't have it bothering us. For the next question, write a select SQL statement to display the class names and surnames of all classes that are attended by students. Now this is a difficult one. We want to get the class names of all classes. Well, why does it say surnames? We say class names. Class names and surnames for all classes that are attended by students who have a surname starting with the letter G. This is a difficult one. What are we displaying? Class name and surname. Where's class name and surname come from? The student table, and the result table. So class name is in the result table, last name is in the student tables, and we want to display those two things. I'm not going to worry about everything else until we have to worry about it. We'll worry first about what we are displaying. So select. Now we know that the class name comes from the result table, so we say result dot class name, result dot class name, comma, what else are we displaying? The surname, in other words the last names from the student table. So student dot last name, comma. That's all we have to display. We don't have to worry about anything else. And you want those two things. It says display the class names and the surnames. For classes that are attended by students who have a surname starting with the letter G. Now in our select statement we've got two tables involved here. So in our from statement we have to have a from statement, and there we've got to go and quote the two tables names. The one is called result. The other one is called student. There it is. And before we go any further, we have to quote the join between these two tables. And what is the join? Remember, student ID one, student ID in the other. So we just say where result dot student ID equals student table dot student ID. Now there is another thing we have to worry about. The surname starting with the letter G. So we just go and add here where student dot last name like, and we go and put in our rotation here of the G and the percentage sign. And if we're going to use that percentage sign, which is a wildcard, anything starting with the letter G, we use the word like. Let's run it. So there's Granger, Granger, Granger. We've only got one person with a surname starting with the letter G. Isn't that interesting? If we had to look here at the student table, you'll see last name Granger, and he's got 2 classes. How many classes did it come up with? 3. Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, and Transfiguration. Done. Right, next one. We're now going to question 3. Write a select SQL statement to display the first name in the house of all students who achieved a mark greater than 90. So, what's to display? In our select statement, we have to worry about the first name and the house. Well, where are those two coming from? First name and house are coming from the student table. There's only one table. But there's a twist here. Okay, we'll go and write student dot first name, student dot house. Okay, this looks like it's only coming from one table, but there's a trick here, because we're worrying about students who achieved a mark greater than 90. So we have to be using the other table as well, the other one called result, because the student mark is there. Because in our where statement, we have to go and worry about the student mark. So we have to go and say we are going to use the result table as well, even though we're not displaying it, see? But why don't we display it? Result dot student mark. Of course, it would be a good idea to see the actual marks, wouldn't it? So, yep, I've got it right, student mark there. We want the first name in the house, and okay. So I'm just going to put in here that we want the student mark as well. So, of all students who achieved a mark greater than 90. Well, we know that we're going to use 2 tables. We want to display the first name, the house, and the mark from those 2 tables, because student mark comes from result table. First name and house come from student table. So in the from statement, we have to say student, comma, result. And then straight away in our where statement, we have to quote the join, just like we did before. Before we do any other criteria. So the student ID equals the student ID in the one table equals the student ID in the other table. That's our join of the 2 tables. And then we have to worry about where the student mark, where that is greater than 90, semicolon. Now we run it, and we'll see that we've got Harry in Gryffindor, Ravenclaw. Most Gryffindors did all the hard work, it looks like, because they've got a lot of marks greater than 90. So that's it. Try it by yourself.